Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, everyone watching us live across the globe. Welcome to Excellence, the 30 Minutes Talk Show. So, keeping personal safety in mind, as always, is in case of any emergency, wherever you're watching us from now, please carry yourself to a safe location and call your local helpline. Now, today we have with us David Heaton, an ex-project manager and now teacher, who will be talking to us about his career change journey. Welcome on the show, David.
Thank you very much, Swapnil.
So I've worked with David in the past, and he's a great person to work with, and I look to him as one of my mentors. And he started his career with a chemical engineering background, and he has held various positions, including managing director of a process equipment manufacturing company. And the last we worked together during his tenure as a project manager with a major oil and gas contractor. So he's currently working as a math teacher at a secondary school in Kingston. And it's really great to have you on today's talk show, David, to share with us your career transition from like an engineering sector and now into teaching sector. So I again welcome you on the show. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. My pleasure indeed.
Yeah.
No, you carry on, Swapnil.
Go on, David. No, you go on, David.
No, I was just going to start off, give you a brief synopsis of my career.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. We'll come to that. I'm going to I think that's going to be my first question to you. But yeah, so I just wanted to say to everyone, it's about our outlook, towards everything around us and within us. It's changes on our personal life experience, I think, which one of what David is going to talk to us about. And then what happens is the perception about things become boundless, because what happens is it opens up various possibilities which emerge out of these challenging situations. So, and many people have done the unthinkable, either due to the compelled circumstances of whatever they fall into, or some of them give a very careful thought towards progression of their professional careers. So it's very much like the quicker you let go of your old cheese, the sooner you find your new cheese. Now, this is one of the quotes from the classic book, Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. And it advocates the change in mindset. So David, now obviously the floor is going to be to you. And my first question to you will be how, if you can share with us, as you said, you wanted to share something about your career, but how, if you can share with us, what was your, how you started with your first career, how it began, and what triggered the switch to a new one?
Yeah.
What to you, David?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a long time ago, probably 40 years plus, and I started work in the coal industry, believe it or not. And it soon became apparent that the coal industry was in decline, and it was obvious I needed to make a change. So I moved from the coal industry to the oil industry. And after about 40 years, the oil industry started to decline. So I could probably say I've outlived two industries, two energy industries. But so the first time when I went from coal to oil, it was forced upon me. I didn't really have any choice in the matter. The company I was working for was making redundancies, and they pointed the finger at me and said, "You're going to go." So I went, and it was a very good move for me. I moved down from the north of England down to London. I got married. I bought a house. I did all the things you're supposed to do, and I thrived in the oil industry, and I took on various roles, various different responsibilities, and eventually I ended up, as you've said, as a managing director of a equipment supply company, a process equipment supply company. And but I'd say that probably management wasn't my my first love, not company management or running. I liked projects, I liked design, I liked getting my hands dirty, and going to the sites. And eventually I got the opportunity to leave the equipment supply side and join an engineering company. That was about 2003. And again, that was a good move. And I think that came about because I realized that I was getting more and more involved in day-to-day running of the company, and less involved in the actual equipment and the building stuff, which was what I liked. So, I could say that move was made because I wanted to do what I was good at. I wanted the satisfaction of knowing that I'd done a good job. Whereas previously, I have to say that running a company, I didn't enjoy. I don't think I did it particularly well, and so the job satisfaction really wasn't there. But then when I got into doing small projects and design work and so on, yeah, I thrived. I loved it, and I started doing larger projects, more varied projects. Some completely out of my comfort zone. We started looking at decommissioning. We looked at the various things I had no skill, no knowledge of previously, but found that I could get other people involved and trade off their skills, and putting together a little team, many of whom I see in front of me now. That was what I liked. I loved to put together a group of people who could work well together, and I'd try and fill in the gaps or encourage them to do their jobs to the best of their ability to satisfy the clients. And as I got older, I think I started enjoying most of all seeing the growth in the younger engineers, seeing them take on responsibilities, get more and more involved, and I think that became my focus. Really, it was to give people chances to promote them beyond the whatever it said on their business card. Okay, we've got a graduate engineer. Well, you can do the lead engineer's job. You're good enough. If you're good enough, you're old enough. Yeah. That was my view. And then when the oil industry started to decline a little bit, and our company hit hard times, and they were looking to make people redundant, I kind of looked around and I thought, well, am I really enjoying this? If so many people are going to leave the industry, am I going to enjoy it? I don't want to work alone. I don't want to do all the hard work. I got used to having younger engineers doing the work for me. So I thought, well, okay, what I'm enjoying is training, is developing skills, is perhaps teaching. So when I had the opportunity to volunteer for redundancy, I thought, well, that's maybe I could do that. Maybe I could move into education. And it hadn't occurred to me then that I would become a teacher. I thought I'd probably find a role in a further education college, or where you actually, as a lecturer, you don't actually need any qualifications, because I didn't think I wanted to spend any time getting requalified. I wanted just to get straight in there. But so it was a spur of the minute decision. I didn't plan 5 years ahead that I was going to leave my job and become a teacher. I woke up one morning, I thought, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I went into work. Well, I had to work with my wife first, and she supported me. I went into work and handed in my notice, and you know, that was great. Suddenly I felt lightheaded. I was walking around with a spring in my step. It was a wonderful feeling for a moment. And then I thought, oh my, what now? So I suppose I was in a fortunate position. You know, financially I was secure. My children had grown up and left home. They were all working. So, you know, I was in a luxury position from that point of view. But still, it took if I'd thought about it a long time, I don't know whether I would have done it. The spur of the moment probably helped. But I left the job and I applied for a course, just a 12-week course, to give you an introduction into training for further education. And it was a voluntary thing, really. I didn't need to do it, but I thought, well, you know, if I can point to the fact that I've done this course, then, you know, people will take me seriously if I apply for lecturing jobs. And then during the course of this course, I actually started enjoying it. I thought, well, this is fun. I actually like learning. I like studying. I like writing small essays on various subjects that they were giving us to do. And there was the opportunity to stand up in front of a class and teach them things, you know, things that interested me, and I enjoyed that as well. So the more I did this, the more I thought, well, you know, teaching in a school might be what I want to do. So that was 2017. I thought, well, okay, if I'm going to do that, let's volunteer. I went into a few schools for the next several months and volunteered in the maths department. Gave a couple of little lessons. I did one-to-one tuition. And the more I did it, the more I really tried. I thought, yeah, that could make a difference. I could help out. There was a shortage of maths teachers, and I suppose there were thoughts of, you know, it's payback time. You know, and I've got the skill I can offer. The country wants maths teachers. You know, maybe this is my time to give back. So then it became apparent that you can't just walk into a school and teach. You do need a qualification. They call it the PGCE. It's the Postgraduate Certificate in Education, and it's a one-year program. And the nice thing about doing maths or sciences is you do get a bursary. You get a grant towards your fees and living expenses, so that helped. I can't pretend it didn't, but I really enjoyed the course. It was challenging. It made you realize quite a lot about yourself, about your own shortcomings, and about what you're going to face when you go into a classroom. And I suppose one of the most important things I learned was that, you know, it's not about me. When you're teaching, when you're in front of a class, it's about the kids. It's not about you. You are incidental. You are irrelevant to them. You know, you've got to impart the learning to them, and they've all got their own problems. They've all got their own interests and concerns, and try and address those is very, very hard. But it's the challenge is fascinating. So, you know, I've enjoyed that. Yeah, so I did the PGCE course, and then they have a training element in a school. You have to spend a whole year in the school as what they call a newly qualified teacher, and then you've got to look for a job. Well, I was lucky enough that the school that I trained in offered to keep me on, and not only that, they agreed to take me on a part-time basis. So, you know, now I'm living the dream. You know, I'm coasting into retirement. I'm working 4 days a week. Next year, they've said they're happy for me to go to 3 days a week. So for me, it's been a great eye-opener. It's taught me as much about myself as it has about teaching. It's and it's a transition to something that I can look back and say, well, that was worthwhile. And everybody, you go to a dinner party and you say you're a teacher, and people respond to teaching. When you went to a dinner party, you probably all know it. You say, "Oh, I'm an engineer in the oil industry," and that's the end of the conversation. Everybody has an opinion about teaching and teachers, and so it's made conversations quite a lot more interesting. So, but yeah, I've been very fortunate. I consider myself fortunate still. I'm enjoying it. I'm not too stressed, although on occasions I do come home cursing and swearing at the girls I teach, but you get over it. So, but overall, I think I've always had a high opinion of teachers, but having seen it at the sharp end. People going into teaching at a young age and carving out a career for 30, 40 years. Wow, it's you've got to take your hat off to them. It's a wonderful profession, and I think we all owe them so much. Not me. I'm not saying you owe me anything. We owe teachers and
yeah, definitely
so much.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, that's how I came to be where I am now.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that, David. So obviously, like you have answered a couple of my following questions actually, and then what the factors like which we considered during the switch mostly started with your passion, I think, because you said you wanted to impart know-how what you had, and you always loved training and liked training the fresh graduates whilst you're working in the engineering companies or sector, and that's what you thought like you can carry on in future as you saw the turmoil in the oil and gas industry, and you have survived like from the coal to the oil and gas, and from the oil and gas now coming into teaching. And at the same time, so first was, I think, the passion. That's what I understand, and that's what I think is what most of us should be actually taking away from this is when you're trying to establish your career options or switches, I guess the passion definitely matters, and then the transferable skills, which you told about training and developing your young engineers, which is helping you now in training or teaching the students of secondary school. And obviously, I think you said like you did like, again, going back onto the 12-week course and stuff, but like for me sometimes it feels daunting, like going into a full-time course or an education. So that additional qualification also like requires quite a lot of patience and hard work to do the course. Like my wife has done it, so I know how much efforts you guys have to put into it. So that's one way of coming into teaching, like which you said is PGC, like postgraduate certification of education. What are there any other options for people to come in, like, because not everyone would be like willing to get into like the 1 year full-time education unless they are really getting the bursary. So are there any other routes to get into teaching, David, or this is the only one?
Well, if you want to teach in the private sector, I don't think there's any rules. Private school can employ anybody. So if you can convince a private school that you can teach, then you can teach there. I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, I think that might say more about private schools than training, but yeah, I think in the secondary school and primary school section, I don't think there is any other route other than things like Teach First, which is designed for young graduates to get into teaching, but that is very arduous. you're thrown into generally a rough failing school, and you basically you sink or swim. And I don't think I'd recommend that to anybody as a transition from engineering or from any walk of life into teaching. What you describe about not wanting to spend a year getting a qualification, that's the way I felt when I first left engineering. I didn't want to have to retrain. That's why I thought about the further education. So that would be sort of 19, 20-year-olds. And there again, if you can convince the college that you are capable of teaching, they don't insist on you having a qualification. But that's probably, you need to know somebody. I did do a few phone arounds and didn't get much of a response at all. Then I did the award for education and training, which is specifically for further education, and then that's what whetted my appetite for actually doing the full PGCE. But what I found when I was teaching the occasional further education class was that by and large you were talking to children or young adults who had failed at school and were now facing reality, and they were suddenly, I can't get a job because I haven't got a maths O level or GCSE, sorry, or I haven't got my English GCSE, and they were scared, to be honest. And you were teaching kids who were desperate because they hadn't paid attention when 5 years earlier, and now they've learned that's not a good thing, that they should have done it at the right time. And then that made me think, well, okay, maybe I could do something for them 5 years earlier if I went into a school. I mean, I'm not sure I have anything special to offer. I think they offer me a lot more, just understanding my own shortcomings and my own, what I'm good at, what I'm not so good at, and even now I find it a very humbling experience every day. And I think I've mentioned to you, so I had no problem going and facing international oil companies and government bodies, but put me in front of the year 10 class at Tolworth Girls' School, I'm a shivering wreck. They're far more intimidating. But so I'm not sure that helps, but I think the PGCE route is the one you should take because it's the one everybody recognises.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that. So as much as it is intimidating, I think it is rewarding as well, because you are getting that satisfaction, which I guess, and we can see, all of us can see you're very happy and cheerful teacher, basically. So what I'm going to open up the floor for questions from the attendees. So if any one of you has a question for David, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please. So yeah, the floor is to you, attendees now. I'll keep a shush for a while. Yes, Sangeeta.
I would like to ask, what was the most challenging when you started your teaching job?
Most challenging. I suppose I didn't have any trouble with the presentational aspects. I was always quite confident and willing to talk, and it's when you spend some time planning a lesson and you think you've got it absolutely right, and then you're facing a group who are just blank faces, and there's no understanding there, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I've pitched it at the wrong level, and you know, they haven't even got on the first rung of the ladder, and I'm sort of halfway up the ladder, and then having to think on your feet and go back down and start taking these little fairy steps to try and entice them into understanding. So I think the most difficult thing is knowing where to pitch your how much to assume that they know. Well, you shouldn't assume they know anything, to be honest. But and the other thing, of course, is that you in industry, you are addressing people who are actually quite interested in what you've got to say. And when you're at school, you're addressing people who really are not interested at all. And you've got to sell them. You've got to sell them on the topic and hook them in and give them something that they makes them want to learn, and that can be very difficult. But you know, you find that something works, and you know, so you build on that. So, you know, it's, and I think that's why teachers with 10 years experience are far better than you know, me with barely 1 year. So, yeah, I think everything is difficult in teaching, to be honest, but it's all challenging. And,
yeah. Thanks, David. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, David. It's always, you know, we have that generation gap problem. So I really struggle to discuss with the kids because their thinking and their mentality is altogether different. I'm an older generation. So how did you cope up with the infants and the children you're teaching?
I mean, that's an interesting one, because there's a generation gap amongst the teachers as well, because you know, my mentor when I was training was younger than my eldest son, which wasn't a problem to me, and it wasn't a problem to him. Actually, we got on great. But you notice when you're actually teaching the kids, they don't distinguish between you know, my mentor's age and my age. As far as they're concerned, we could be brothers and sisters. We're all old. And I think well, there was something on the radio yesterday. This guy Ollie Robinson, the cricketer, who had issued some ill-advised tweets a few years ago, and they were saying, well, of course, nowadays he wouldn't have been making tweets; he'd be doing something else, you know, which was unfortunate for it, or he would be tweeting, but the tweet gets deleted or something. You know, the technology had changed so that he, in his day, which was only 5 or 6 years ago, you know, he's stuck with this thing that's on Facebook or wherever it was, and can be discovered. But 6 years later, the technology's changed, and you know, whatever people say now gets deleted immediately, and you know, so it's not trackable. So you know, that's something in a few years, their reference points, the technology they use has changed immediately. So anybody that used the old stuff is you know, already over the hill, regardless of whether it was 2 or 3 generations previous. So yeah, I mean, I use vinyl records, and some people would have used DVDs, but I mean, it doesn't matter. They're all old, and you know, the kids are now streaming stuff, and they really have little concept of what a record or a DVD is, other than it's something that their parents or even their grandparents may have. But you know, the young teachers, are in that kind of generation, in the DVD generation, well, it's as irrelevant to the kids today as black vinyl records were. So I don't think the kids are as bothered about it as perhaps we oldies think they would be. I think yeah, everybody in a teaching role is an old fart as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, thanks for that, David. It's I think the perception, because like if being adults, we as being adult and all our adult life, we have this perception like how the kids would think of us. And as you're saying that you have given again a perspective that it doesn't really matter what, and they won't be really thinking about us like whether this is from this person or this teacher is from an older generation or what, or he doesn't understand what I'm doing on my gadgets which I'm using, but like he's imparting me the knowledge. I think that's what is more looked upon, I guess.
Yeah.
So I hope that has answered your question.
Yeah, very much. Thank you. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. So thank you, David. So we are obviously, this is a half-an-hour show, so we are running out of time. I'm sure there are quite a lot of people who would have more questions. So I'm just requesting everyone, if you have any questions, you can come back to us on excellence@spnsslimited.co.uk, and I'll ping them back to David for answering them for you. So with this, I would say thank you, David, for sharing your career change journey with us, and obviously the live experiences and the guidances you have given us. It has indeed given us some insights into what to look for if one is thinking about changing the path in their career. So thanks again, David, and thank you everyone for coming and being with us on this talk show, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.